The night my dad threw me out, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't curse or threaten or even look angry. He just opened the front door and said, "If you want that life, you can have it. You just can't have it here." That was 10 years ago, in the middle of January, just after dinner. The house still smelled like my roast chicken, not that anyone said a single word about it. I was 18, and my crime was wanting to be a chef. Not a manager, not a numbers guy, not some groomed-up clone of Warren Pierce. My name's Ansel. I'm 28 now, still in Tennessee. But I carry that night like a scar you can't see unless the light hits just right. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. That dinner felt like a setup. My mom had made one of her casserole specials, which she only did when she wanted everyone together. Marin sat straight-backed, perfect posture, her face locked in neutral. I already knew. I could feel it before a word got spoken. Dad slid a document across the table. Business school application, already filled out. Sticky tabs where I was supposed to sign. Mom said, real cheerful, "We've all talked about what's best for your future," meaning they had. Without me, I said no. Told them I'd applied to a culinary program. That's when the air in the room changed. Mom took my debit card off the table and slipped it into her purse like she was pulling the plug. No yelling, no drama, just quiet removal. "Fine," Dad said. "Then you're on your own." Marin didn't say a word, didn't look at me. She sat there frozen, eyes on the table like she was scared to move. I didn't scream, didn't argue. I packed that night slow and quiet, like I was on a timer. One bag, no coat from them, just what I owned clean. I left before sunrise. I didn't sleep, just walked. Sat in a grocery store until they made me move. Counted steps to stay upright. I had $200 and a bad coat, no backup. Around dawn, I saw this taped up paper on a diner door. "Kitchen help, Caroline Oaks." I walked in, smelling like exhaustion and fear. The owner, Rhea Kincaid, looked me over, handed me an onion and a knife and said, "Show me your worth payroll." I diced like my life depended on it, because it did. That first night at Caroline Oaks, I slept in a storage room next to a tower of flour sacks and a mop sink that never drained right. The cot creaked if I even breathed wrong, but it was heat, a door, and a place where I wasn't getting watched for signs of failure. Rhea made it clear the next morning, "You're not a guest. You're on trial." Then she handed me a bucket and pointed at the floor drain. I spent the first few weeks doing whatever nobody else wanted to. Scrubbing vents, peeling potatoes until my hands cramped, taking out trash in freezing rain. I never once asked when I'd get to cook. I just kept showing up earlier than I was asked and stayed quiet until someone told me what needed doing. My first check came to $197 after taxes. I stood in line at a check cashing place with a crumpled stub and a knot in my gut like I was holding something illegal. I bought a prepaid phone, a couple packs of ramen, and tucked the rest into a new account at a bank across town. I didn't keep it digital. I wrote every dollar down in a one-subject notebook like it was court evidence. I didn't trust my memory. I trusted paper. Rhea didn't believe in praise. She believed in repetition. If I messed something up, she didn't correct me with words. She handed it back and walked away. I learned by doing it again, then again, until she didn't say anything at all. That's how you knew it was right. One morning she said, "Seasoning isn't a rescue, it's a spotlight." I had no idea what she meant, but I wrote it down anyway. Some lines take time to land. I worked full shifts, then studied at night, had in a library book or online course until I couldn't see straight. I didn't do it for inspiration. I did it because going back was not an option. I got my GED, then a culinary certificate from a community program. Nothing flashy, just enough to keep moving forward. I found a room to rent from a guy named Noah Caldwell, who was training to be a paramedic and lived like he was already one. Quiet, organized, no nonsense. He didn't do long talks, just small things that added up. Eat before your shift. You good on rent? Text me if you're going to be late. He never asked for my whole story, and I never gave it. We just started trusting each other like normal people. No speeches needed. After 2 years, Rhea told me it was time. She wrote something by hand, sealed it in an envelope, and handed it to me without explanation. I didn't open it. I put it in the waterproof envelope with my documents and told myself I'd read it when I felt like someone who belonged somewhere. I jumped from kitchen to kitchen, always on the edge of being good enough, until I landed with Hugh Morrow, a guy who could ruin your confidence with a 5-second stare. He hired me at a place that didn't care what school you went to, just what you did on the plate. I liked that. No fake kindness, just high standards. By 26, I had a real plan. Nashville made sense, big enough to matter, small enough to break into. I picked neighborhoods by foot traffic and lease prices, Got approved for a $96,000 small business administration loan with no cosigner. Added 29 grand of my own savings. The woman at the bank, Della Sykes, said, "That's a rare kind of bet you're placing." I said, "It's the only kind I've got." I called the place Tally Kitchen because I kept tallies on everything: money, minutes, mistakes. By the end of 2025, when I was 27, the lease was mine, the payroll was mine, and every plate that left the line was mine. I'd built a life that didn't need permission. I locked the office door behind me, sat down at my desk, and stared at my phone like it had just turned into a weapon. The screen was still lit up with missed calls stacked on top of each other, all from the same Indiana number I hadn't saved. It looked desperate on the surface, but I knew better than to trust how things looked with my family. The text sat right under it, clean and controlled. Marin in an accident, car found, no body. I was the last contact. It read like a setup, not a plea. I didn't touch the call button. I read it again, slower this time, like I was reviewing terms before signing something that could ruin me. Car was found told me nothing. No officer name, no hospital, no timeline. Just pressure and a hook. That's how my mother worked. She didn't give you facts, she gave you urgency and waited for you to panic into the role she picked for you. I leaned back, rubbed my face once, then forced myself forward. I opened my notes app and started logging everything. Timestamps, exact wording, number of calls. I took screenshots and backed them up. If this turned into a mess, I wasn't relying on memory. Memory bends, records don't. That's when I saw it. One unread message buried under everything else, from a Nashville area code. The timestamp hit me first, earlier than my mom's first call. My stomach dropped because the order of events mattered more than the content. I didn't open it right away. I got up, crossed the office, and pulled the waterproof envelope out of my desk drawer. My hands were steady, but tight, like I was bracing for impact. That letter from Rhea was still sealed, same as the day she handed it to me. I held it for a second, then set it on the desk next to my phone like I was lining up tools. Then I opened the message. It was Marin, straight to the point, no extra words. She said she bought the phone with cash, that she wasn't hurt, that she was leaving. Said she couldn't let them pull her back this time. Then she mentioned my applications. 10 years late, like a door cracking open after it should have been sealed forever. I read it twice, then a third time, slower. My chest felt tight, not emotional, focused. This wasn't a reunion message. This was a warning. She added one more line, and that's the one that stuck. Start where nobody asked you to explain yourself, just to work. That wasn't random. That was Caroline Oakes. That was Rhea. I reached for the letter without thinking and tore it open. The paper inside was simple, no fluff. Rhea had written exactly how she talked. Direct, practical, no comfort padding. She listed what she'd seen in me, what I did right, what I did wrong, and one line that hit harder than anything else. Don't confuse guilt with duty. They look the same until you're trapped. I let that sit for a second, then nodded once like I'd just been given instructions instead of advice. That line cut straight through the noise my mom was trying to build. I grabbed my phone and called Noah. He picked up on the second ring, voice clear, already awake enough to matter. "What's going on?" he said. I gave him the facts, clean and in order. No guessing, no emotion layered on top, only what I had and what I didn't. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he said, "Tell me where you're going. Every stop, and don't go alone if you can avoid it." I stood up, grabbed my keys, and started moving. I left before the sun came up. Noah texted, "Gas full? Tires look okay?" I answered with a quick yes and pulled onto the ramp heading north. I wasn't chasing a mystery. I was building a profile. If Marin left the car on purpose, she needed a place nearby that took cash, didn't ask questions, and had enough noise to drown out someone panicking in silence. I'd stayed in places like that, rooms with plastic chairs, vending machines that buzzed like power lines, doors you didn't want to lock too hard in case you had to run. I opened my laptop at a rest stop 20 miles out. Nothing fancy. I just did what my dad used to do, scan public filings, dig into property records, skim court calendars. Only I wasn't doing it to control anyone. I was doing it to predict the next move before it cornered me. I found a hearing scheduled in Indianapolis, tied to my dad's firm, involving a client dispute. Not a smoking gun, but enough to explain the pressure bleeding into everything else. My mom kept calling, every 20 or 30 minutes, like she was trying to catch me at a weak moment. I let it ring, then came the text from my dad. "Call your mother, this is serious." Short, cold, strategic. He never led with emotion. He waited until he could frame the terms. I turned the sound off and kept driving. Marin's burner sent updates every couple hours, just a few words each time. I'm okay. Not sure how long I'll stay. Trying to breathe. She mentioned a vending machine hum and a bleachy stairwell. That gave me something to go on. Not a clue, an atmosphere. I started cross-referencing motels along the Interstate 65 route that matched the layout. Exterior stairs, older builds, independent operators, no big chains. That narrowed it to 9 places. I called Caroline Oaks from a rest stop outside Franklin. Rhea picked up herself. I hadn't heard her voice in years, but it didn't feel distant. It felt like she just stepped outside for a smoke and came back to find me waiting. I told her, Marin's off-grid. I think she's trying to dodge our parents. I'm tracking north. She didn't waste time on sympathy. Then don't go in blind. You know how they work. Worse than I thought, I said. She paused, then added something I hadn't expected. 2 weeks ago, someone came in asking about you. Paid in cash. Didn't give a name. Too calm to be random. Too calculated to be harmless. My throat tightened. Female? Could have been. No earrings. Dress jacket. Left fast. That sounded like Gwen Pierce or someone she sent. They were already poking around before Marin ran. That changed the math. This wasn't fallout. It was setup. My mom's accident text felt like bait now, a trap dressed as concern. Maybe they needed Marin to sign something. Maybe they needed me to show up first. Noah texted again. Stay level. Confrontation helps them, not you. He was right. They thrived on cornering you into exploding, then pointing to your reaction as proof you were unstable. I made a list of the remaining motels and ran one last filter. What name would Marin use to check in? Not her married name, not our father's, but something that felt like escape, not exposure. Our mother's maiden name hit me like a tap on the shoulder. I circled the most likely spot, one that lined up with her clues and had a manager who didn't upload guest lists to corporate systems. I didn't know for sure if she was there, but I knew where to start. And as I pulled back onto the highway, I kept hearing Rhea's voice in my head, clear and brutal. Guilt is not duty. The motel looked like every budget place on the side of a highway. Old sign, newer locks, faded security sticker in the window like a threat made on a budget. I stepped inside with my jaw tight and my phone still recording timestamps just in case. The front desk guy was younger than me, eyes bloodshot, chewing gum like he needed the rhythm to stay awake. I didn't try to bluff, just held out my phone with a photo of Marin. I'm looking for my sister, I said. Last name Pierce. She might have checked in yesterday. He looked at the photo, then at me, then back again like he was trying to figure out if I was trouble or just tired. He said, We've got an M. Lane. Checked in late. Didn't give much. Lane. That was our mom's maiden name. That was intentional. Marin had picked the one part of the family tree that didn't carry a chain. Room? He hesitated. I'm not here to make a scene, I just want to talk to her. After a second, he said, 112, second floor, exterior walkway. You'll hear the vending machine before you see it. I thanked him and took the stairs 2 at a time. The machine was humming like it had a short in it. I knocked once and waited. No second knock. If she didn't answer, I'd leave. The door opened. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Same face, same eyes, but stripped of all the polish I remembered from Christmas cards and company bios. She wore a hoodie 2 sizes too big and didn't even pretend to smile. I said, Are you hurt? She said, No. Then tell me what's real, right now. She stepped aside and let me in. The room smelled like antiseptic and tired air. We sat across from each other, both leaning forward like we were ready to bolt. She started with the car. It wasn't an accident. She parked it unlocked by a rest stop, ditched her phone, took a rideshare to Nashville. She'd planned the whole thing to look like a crisis. I needed them looking the wrong way, she said. Then she told me about the shoebox. 10 years ago, our mom had her reorganizing winter clothes in my closet. Marin found the envelopes, my applications, my apprenticeship forms, and panicked. She tried to move them somewhere safer. Our dad caught her holding the box in the hall. She froze, handed it over. I swallowed hard. And the letters? He opened them, read them, treated them like they were proof of something broken. Some he shredded. One acceptance email he deleted. I didn't know what was missing until years later. How? I found a plastic bin in his office, labeled Ansel School, tucked behind old tax files, like a crime scene. Then she laid it all out. Her life wasn't freedom, it was a contract. Our parents kept access to her in small ways, shared phone plans, family logins, little bits of control that added up to a leash. Dad pushed her into corporate finance, then used her salary and clean credit to keep his business afloat when things started sliding. She said it wasn't framed as a request. It was always a family favor. Every time she signed something, the tabs were already marked, just like at dinner. She pulled out her phone and showed me photos. Guarantor pages, loan documents, 2 loans tied to our dad's firm, exposure totals over $214,000. I couldn't speak. She kept going. I got married, she said. Troy Vale, nice guy, steady. It lasted 16 months. I raised an eyebrow. They interfered with everything, money, schedules, seating charts. He told me one night, I didn't marry a woman, I married a committee, and he walked. Then she said the one line I didn't see coming. They're not calling you because they miss you. They're calling because I stopped being usable. You're the next clean name. I sat back, blood running cold, and that's when I understood. The accident wasn't panic. It was strategy. I looked straight at Marin and asked, why me? She didn't flinch. Because Dad's lender's getting nervous. Terms are tightening. They need someone to step in. I didn't show up, so now it's your name they're looking at. Refinance, guarantee, something fast, something public. If they don't get it, things fall apart. And if that happens, Mom's image takes a hit. That sounded about right. It was never just about money. It was about presentation. They could survive losing control. They couldn't survive being seen losing it. Marin hesitated before adding, he still has copies of your stuff. Social, birth certificate, all the old records. I don't know what he's done with them. I just know he said he could if he wanted to. I nodded once. I kept my originals. She gave me this look that said that won't matter if they don't play fair, but she didn't say it out loud. She didn't have to. I drove back to Nashville that afternoon with my teeth set and my brain moving in loops. At a red light, I pulled up my credit report. I didn't expect to find anything huge, just a hunch I couldn't shake. And there it was. One soft inquiry from 6 months ago. Small business category, not mine. I stared at it until the car behind me honked. That was the first solid mark. Proof they weren't just chasing Marin. They'd already been circling me, quietly, like bloodhounds waiting for the right scent. Whether it was through permits, filings, or someone pretending to ask on my behalf, it didn't matter. The line had already been crossed. The restaurant was about to get crushed. Holiday parties, catering, and an inspection I couldn't reschedule. It was the kind of week where one distraction could cost 5 stars and 10 grand. I could feel it happening already. The familiar trap forming. Family pressure on one side, business pressure on the other, and just enough chaos to make folding feel easier than fighting. Noah showed up that night after his shift. Didn't text first, just walked in, dropped his keys on the table, and sat like he'd lived there his whole life. I laid it all out, Marin's messages, my notes, screenshots. Noah didn't say a word until I finished. Then he said, you need a lawyer before you need a conversation. I nodded. Is Marin safe? Has she eaten? She's in a motel. She's scared, but she's clear. Then you handle the paperwork. I'll help keep her fed. That's Noah. Cut through the drama, land on the part that keeps people alive. I called Cal Porter, a lease attorney I'd worked with once. Told him the situation in bullet points. He didn't ask for gossip. He asked for documents. Screenshots? He said. Sent. Anyone asked you to sign anything yet? No. Good. We're going to keep it that way. He walked me through locking down my credit, flagging potential fraud, and pulling every public business record tied to me. Then he hit me with the one sentence that stuck. Don't think of this as family drama. This is an attempted financial reach. That phrasing snapped everything into focus. I stopped thinking like a son. I started thinking like an owner. Marin texted from the motel again. One last warning. Mom had already started floating a story, told relatives that Marin might be missing and that I might be involved, prepping the narrative, laying down the script before anyone could ask questions. That's how she operated. Control the tone, control the room. I could see it all forming, the trap, the pressure, the guilt trip lined with fine print. And I saw through it. I wasn't going back into their system to save Marin. And I wasn't letting her drown just to keep my distance. I could do both. That was the point. Choice over obligation. Cal didn't sugarcoat it. He sent the cease notice to both of my parents by certified email and hard copy. Clean, sharp, and cold. Any contact with me had to go through him. Any attempt to pressure my employees, vendors, or business partners would be documented as harassment. He left no space for misreading. 48 hours later, my mother tested the wall. She called the restaurant during prep like it was a normal Tuesday, gave my full name to the host like she was making a reservation for brunch. When the host said I wasn't available, Mom pivoted to asking for the manager, not to check on me, to gather intel. That's what she did, probe for gaps, see who cracked. The next morning, 2 one-star reviews hit our Google page back to back. Both mentioned poor leadership and concerning ownership behavior. Same tone, same passive-aggressive rhythm. I couldn't prove it was her, but I didn't need a signature. Gwen Pierce's brand of polite cruelty had a very specific scent. It smiled while cutting. Dad went another direction. He emailed Cal a formal message full of phrases like family responsibility, difficult decisions, and Ansel's opportunity to restore trust. It looked like concern to the untrained eye. But buried halfway down, there it was, the real ask. If Ansel is in touch with Murren, perhaps he can assist in stabilizing the situation by facilitating her return or appearing in person to review and finalize several documents connected to family business matters. That told me everything. They didn't want reunion. They wanted a signature. I pulled my small business administration loan docs, lease files, and business formation paperwork, scanned and sent them to Cal. No family names, no inherited dollars. No one could call what I built a group project. I told Cal to underline that if anyone tried to link me to the firm, the pushback would be legal, not emotional. Murren helped tighten the record. She forwarded screenshots from her work email, calendar invites disguised as check-ins that turned into pressure meetings. Her inbox had chains from Dad's office manager sending documents with sign here tabs already attached. Same dinner table trick, just with consequences in the 6 figures. Meanwhile, the heat kept rising on my end. An inspector bumped up our surprise visit, which meant I had to rush prep and shuffle a vendor delivery to make the storage report line up. A supplier shorted me 4 cases of produce. If I'd handled it solo like usual, I would have cracked something. But I made myself delegate, gave my sous chef control of service, and told him flat out, don't call me unless someone bleeds. My parents wanted chaos, wanted me to fumble in public so they could offer their version of a solution. But I wasn't handing them a collapse to fix. Noah helped in quiet ways. He checked our locks, walked the alley after close, dropped off actual meals when I forgot to eat. One night he handed me a plate and said, if they want a scene, don't give them one. Give them paperwork. Cal kept building our record, helped Murren retain her own counsel, set up a post office box, and write a clear statement about coercion. No theatrics, just paper with weight. Then Mom went wide. She started calling extended family, telling them Murren was missing and I was refusing to cooperate. One cousin texted, your mom is scared. I answered once, Murren is safe, stop spreading rumors. That was the last word I gave them. It hit me right then. This wasn't about family. It was about value. They didn't want me because they loved me. They wanted what my clean name could unlock. And I decided they weren't getting it. Murren's lawyer found the crack in the wall. It wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern. My dad's firm had been sliding family members onto paperwork for years, propping up risky deals with clean names. Murren's credit, my silence. If it stayed internal, it looked like loyalty. If it ever hit daylight, it smelled like fraud. Cal told me not to posture or threaten. That gives them a stage, he said. We're not here to perform. We're here to document. So we built the packet. Screenshots of texts, voicemails, the accident language, calendar invites disguised as chats, Murren's coerced signings complete with flagged signature tabs, a clean timeline showing exactly how they used fear and social pressure to force contact. No insults, no adjectives, only names, dates, and proof. We sent it to the lender compliance department for one of the loans Murren had been dragged into. Then we forwarded a copy to the state board that governed my father's professional license. Cal said the same thing twice, once before we sent it and once after. No commentary, just the facts. Let the paper do the talking. The part Mom didn't anticipate was simple. Church Friends and Homeowners Association committees might run on perception, but compliance departments don't care about image. They care about exposure. They care about risk. Her biggest weapons, shame, gossip, social currency, meant nothing in a room full of auditors. Meanwhile, my restaurant didn't collapse, but it shook. I caught myself snapping at a line cook over something stupid, parsley or portioning, I don't even remember. I had to step into the office and sit with my hands locked until the shaking stopped. Fight mode doesn't just leave your body because you've made it. I made one call that helped. I promoted my sous chef, Kevin, to run service 2 nights a week. Gave him full authority. Told him, don't run everything past me. Just do it like you own it. And he did. Smooth nights, strong prep, stable numbers. It reminded me I'd built something that could stand even when I couldn't. The cracks in Gwen's act came slow, One of her church committee friends called me directly, not accusatory, confused, asked what was really going on. That was new. It meant the story wasn't landing clean. Manipulators depend on silence. When people start asking questions, the grip starts to loosen. My father stopped emailing. No more pressure, no new demands, just silence. It didn't feel like peace. It felt like strategy. But silence meant something too. It meant the walls were holding. Maren moved out of the motel and into a short-term rental under her own name. She looked uncomfortable when I helped her with the deposit. "This feels like charity," she said. "It's not. This is me choosing you." She blinked hard at that. So did I. Noah met her once for coffee. He didn't dig into her past or try to play fixer. He just talked like a normal person, asked what kind of food she liked, told her how to reset a circuit breaker if it tripped. I watched them from across the table and felt something loosen in my chest, like maybe family didn't have to mean fire alarms forever. A few weeks later, justice showed up without noise. 2 of Dad's clients pulled their accounts. Word was spreading. They hadn't lost me. They'd lost their illusion. We didn't have some big emotional breakthrough the first week. No speeches, no hugs. Just 2 people trying not to flinch every time something reminded us of home. It felt like trying to learn a new language after growing up with silence. Maren offered to help with books and paperwork while she hunted for a job. I said yes, but on terms that didn't smell like control. I gave her a list, specific tasks, no open-ended trust falls, and I gave her one rule that mattered more than the rest. No surprise conversations. No ambush talks about emotions or decisions. If something hard came up, we'd name it, pick a time, and deal with it like adults not trying to detonate. One night after close, she told me she'd been to Tally Kitchen before, months ago. Came in under a fake name, sat at the bar, didn't stay long. She paid for a dishwasher's meal, left a huge tip, and walked out before I even came out of the back. "I wasn't checking your success," she said. "I just wanted to see who you were when nobody from home was looking." That hit harder than any apology she could have given, not because it hurt, because it proved how much fear still lived in both of us. Fear that doesn't scream, fear that hides. Mom tried another move, a message that said, "We just want our family whole," which sounded sweet until the second half kicked in, a request to send Maren home. Cal answered it with the same line every time. "My client will not facilitate contact." No reply from me, no loopholes to exploit. Maren didn't respond directly either. She just signed an affidavit through her lawyer stating she left voluntarily and that the accident story was false. She said, "It's not to punish her, it's to stop her from weaponizing the lie later." That was the clearest I'd ever heard her speak about Gwen. Troy called her while she was using my office printer. I heard his voice through the phone, steady, flat, not bitter. She said, "I'm sorry for dragging you through that. I understand why you left." She didn't ask for another shot. She just let him go clean. That was a different kind of strength than I'd seen from her before. We hosted a holiday dinner at the restaurant for staff without family plans. Nothing fancy. Noah came. 2 of my cooks brought their kids. Maren sat at the end of the table like she didn't know if she had a real seat there. I caught her eyes and said, "You are allowed to be comfortable." After cleanup, she leaned against the dish sink and said, "I always thought you were the reckless one." "I wasn't reckless," I told her. "I just refused to stay owned." She nodded, like she finally believed that sentence instead of just hearing it. I didn't start talking about forgiveness, didn't use words like healing. I just woke up, went to work, and kept making the same choice every day. This time, I picked my sister because I wanted to, not because anyone told me I had to. By spring, it stopped being rumors. A lender pulled terms. A couple longtime clients quietly shifted their accounts. Dad's solid little practice started shaking loose in public, and that's what really got him. It wasn't the money, it was the image, the reputation he'd built brick by brick, mostly by stepping on ours. Mom changed tactics when the legal ones failed. She sent a message that read like it belonged in a sympathy card. "Let's start fresh as a family," and attached a church flyer like it proved something. But there was no apology, no mention of the night I was kicked out, no acknowledgement of the shoebox or the lies, just another empty ask dressed up like grace. I didn't reply. Cal did. Same line as before, same tone. No further contact, all communication remains routed through legal counsel. That was something I'd finally learned. You don't win by explaining your hurt to people who benefit from not understanding it. You win by being unreachable in the exact places they used to hook you, your time, your money, your name. Maren got an offer in Atlanta with a firm that had 0 ties to Dad's network. She didn't choose it because it was flashy. She chose it because it was clean. On her last night in Nashville, she asked, "Does me leaving feel like I'm abandoning you again?" I said, Leaving's not abandonment when you're walking toward your own life. We drove to Indianapolis once before she left, didn't visit anyone, just sat behind Caroline Oaks, parked where I used to haul trash out the back. We stayed there for 20 minutes, saying nothing, letting the place settle into the right part of memory. "This is where you became real," she said. "No," I told her. "This is where I learned that help doesn't have to come with ownership." That night, I put Ria's letter back in the waterproof envelope, not because I didn't need it anymore, but because I finally understood it. She hadn't written to soften the blow. She'd written instructions for surviving people who blur control with care. Tally Kitchen held steady. Not a fairy tale, just a working life. Some weeks were long. Payroll got tight. I had to replace the fryer twice, but it was mine. That's what burned my parents most. It existed outside their approval, and it didn't need them. The real revenge wasn't loud. It didn't come with a scream or a breakdown. It was in the quiet way I became unusable. Dad couldn't leverage my name. Mom couldn't weaponize my silence. Their story had to keep running without me, and it didn't run as well. Marin and I still don't talk every day, but we talk when it matters. No guilt, no surprise obligations. That's what we built. I never became their son again, but I did become her brother. On purpose. One last thing before you click away. If someone only showed up when they needed your name, your money, or your silence, would you cut them off or keep letting them pull you back in? If you've got the hype feature, tap it to support this video and help it reach more people. And please subscribe and hit like too. It's one click and it matters a lot. Now tell me in the comments what you'd do, even if it's just good story, and why.